Assalamu alaikum, dear students. Today topic is migration of early Muslims to Abyssinia. According to O Level Islamiat, our lecture is divided into three parts. Part one is past paper questions, in which we will find the questions from the past papers of O Level Islamiat. Next part is knowledge, in which I will describe about the migration of early Muslims to Abyssinia, and part 3 is marking scheme, in which I will present the main points of marking scheme of O Level Islamiat. I find these questions from the past papers of O Level Islamiat about this topic. Question 1 is write an account of the first migration of the Muslims to Abyssinia. Question 2 is describe the main events relating to the first migration of Muslims to Abyssinia. Question 3 is give an account of the migration of the early Muslims to Abyssinia. Question 4 is the Prophet allowed some of the early Muslims to move to Abyssinia. Write about the events of this migration. Question 5 is some Muslims traveled to Abyssinia. Describe what happened to the group that migrated. Question 6 is write about the events of the migration to Abyssinia by some of the early Muslims. Question 7 is some of the early Muslims migrated to Abyssinia. Give an account of the events of this migration. Dear students, now we are going to attempt a question. Question is write an account of the first migration of the Muslims to Abyssinia. Need to discuss these points in answer of this question. Point 1 is introduction. Point 2 is reason of migration. Point 3 is migration to Abyssinia, means why they migrated only on to Abyssinia. Next point is first batch of migration. Next point is second batch of migration. Next point is reaction of Quraysh against the migration of Muslims. Next point is importance of migration to Abyssinia. And in the end, we will add a paragraph as our conclusion. Dear students, now we are going to discuss introduction of this answer. Need to discuss these points, but in your own words. Introduction is the migration of early Muslims to Abyssinia was one of the earliest significant events in the Islamic history during the Meccan period. As persecution of Muslims, the Meccan increased under the Quraysh. The Prophet Muhammad permitted his followers to migrate to Abyssinia, a Christian kingdom ruled by a just king, the Negus. This migration, known as the First Hijrah, highlights the struggle of early Muslims to preserve their faith and importance of justice and religious tolerance. Next, we are going to discuss reason of migration. With the increase in persecution on the Holy Prophet and his companions, the situation was no longer tolerable. The Muslims in Makkah, many those without tribal protection and slaves, were being persecuted by the Quraysh. The Muslims began to think of possible options to escape the painful torture meted out to them. Find a place where Muslims could practice their religion freely. An ayat was revealed by Allah Almighty to Prophet Muhammad, the earth being spacious for believers. After this revelation, Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam decided now we need to migrate. Next, we are going to discuss the reason of migration to Abyssinia. The Christian king of Abyssinia, named Negus, original name was Ashama Najashi, and according to Arabic term, name called Ashama, was a just ruler. He did not allow any persecution in his land. Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said to his companions, if you go to Abyssinia, it would be better for you, for the king will not tolerate injustice. Next, we are going to discuss first batch of migration to Abyssinia in the Islamic month of Rajab. In the fifth year of prophethood, Prophet Muhammad allowed a group of 12 men and 4 women to migrate to Abyssinia. Among them was Usman bin Affan, who was the leader of these immigrants, and his wife Ruqayya, the daughter of the Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. The Holy Prophet said about this migration, this is the first family after Prophet Ibrahim and Prophet Lut to migrate in the way of Allah. They sneaked out of Makkah in the dark of night and headed for the port of Shuaiba of Red Sea, where 2 boats happened to be navigation for Abyssinia. When the news of the departure reached the Quraysh, some men were dispatched in their pursuit, but the immigrants had already left. Muslims were received warmly and found the refuge they needed and settled in Abyssinia until they were misreported that the whole of Quraysh had embraced Islam. Event was that once in the month of Ramadan, Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam went to Kaaba. There was a crowd of the leaders of Quraysh. Holy Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam started the recitation of Surah Al-Najm. When Holy Prophet recited this verse, prostrate for Allah and worship Him, and he bowed down for the sajda, all the leaders of Quraysh bowed down for sajda. When the Muslims of Abyssinia heard this news, they made their way back home. But when they were only a day travel away from Makkah, they got to know that the situation was the same as before. Some of them returned to Abyssinia, but others secretly enter into the city. Dear students, next we are going to discuss about second batch of migration to Abyssinia. When the Meccans got to know about the hospitality and warm welcome that the Muslims were accorded in Abyssinia, the polytheists became very furious and intensified the persecution of the Muslims who were still living in Mecca. Therefore, the Holy Prophet allowed the helpless Muslims to seek refuge in Abyssinia for the second time. This time, the groups of immigrants contained 82 or 83 men and 18 women, led by the Prophet's cousin Jafar ibn Abi Talib. However, this time migration was not easy as it had been previously because the Quraysh were alert to these suspicious moves of the Muslims. Next, we are going to discuss reactions of the Quraysh against the migration. The Quraysh could not tolerate the prospect of a secure place available for the Muslims in Abyssinia, so they sent 2 envoys, one Ammar bin al-As and Abdullah bin Abi Rabiha, to demand their extradition. They had taken with them valuable gifts for the king and were able to win some of the courtiers over their side. The pagan envoys claimed before the king that the Muslim refugees should be expelled from the Abyssinia on the ground that they had abandoned the religion of their forefathers. Their leader was preaching a religion different from theirs and that of the king. Makkans blamed only Muslims of having strange beliefs about Jesus, means Hazrat Isa alayhi salam. Najashi called the Muslims to court and asked them to explain the teaching of their religion. The Muslims proposed Jafar bin Abi Talib ago, the Holy Prophet's cousin, as their spokesperson. He rose on behalf of the Muslims and delivered a sermon. Dear students, this sermon is so long, not possible to write whole sermon in your answer. Therefore, you can write this sermon in this way. O King, we were plunged in the depth of ignorance and barbarism until Allah raised among us a man whose birth, truthfulness, and honesty we were aware of. He called us to the oneness of Allah. Negus was so impressed by his speech that he asked Jafar to recite some portion of the Holy Quran. He recited a few verses of Surah Maryam, in which the story of the miraculous birth of Prophet Isa has been told. The recitation of Holy Quran touched the hearts of niggers and the Christian priests present there, and tears flowed down their cheeks. Niggers remarked, by God, these words and the words of the Bible are rays of seeing light. He then exclaimed to the two envoys, I cannot give you back these refugees. They are free to live and worship in my realm as they please. The Quraysh envoys were given their gifts back and sent away. The Muslims lived here in peace until they moved to Medina. In this way, the Quraysh intention showed on them and their secret plan to get the Muslims refugees back met with utter failure. The Quraysh were very angry at the failure of their plan to have the Muslims expelled back from Abyssinia. Therefore, they decided to approach Abu Talib for the second time. They insisted that he put a stop to his nephew activities, which, if allowed unchecked, would get him into serious trouble. Abu Talib was deeply distressed at this open threat. He sent for his nephew and told him what the people had said. Spare me and yourself and put not any burden on me that I cannot bear. Upon hearing this, the Holy Prophet ﷺ replied, O my uncle, by Allah, if they put the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left hand on condition that I abandon the course until Allah has made me victorious or perish therein, I would not abandon it. At this, Abu Talib said, go and preach what you please, for by Allah, I will never forsake you. Now that all their pleas to Abu Talib had failed, the Quraysh resorted to their old practices of persecution and inflicted torture on the Muslims in a more serious and brutal manner than ever before. They also began to the nurse to the idea of killing the Prophet. Dear students, next we are going to discuss importance of migration to Abyssinia. This migration was the first important political move taken by the Prophet. The Muslims started feeling more united and stronger against the Quraysh. The Quraysh realized that the Muslims were very sincere and strong in following their religion. The Muslim refugees learned to manage their affairs in the light of Quran and Sunnah in the absence of the Holy Prophet. This migration trained them for bigger migration means to Medina. Dear student, next we are going to discuss the conclusion. Need to add these points in your conclusion in your own words. The migration to Abyssinia was a turning point for the early Muslims as it provided them safety and freedom to practice their faith away from the persecutions in Makkah. It also demonstrated the wisdom of the Holy Prophet in choosing a just ruler like the Negus, who protected the Muslims despite pressure from the Quraysh. This event not only ensured the survival of the early Muslims community but also showed the importance of patience, trust in Allah, and peaceful coexistence with people of their faith. Their students need to describe all these points in your answer in paragraphic way, not preferable to write your answer by heading or in points. Next, we are going to check marking scheme of this question. Please read these points and attempt your answer according to these points. If you are right, your answer without any one single grammatically and spelling mistake and all events are by order, you are eligible to get 8 or 9 marks by 10.